Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Joe Naz podcast. Today, I am excited to share the story of Morgan Shidler. Morgan is the creator of a book called Hustle and Play, and today we really get to dive into her story. And her story is a wild story where she talks about how she used to manage an entire education department for several dozen employees, hundreds of children, and how it ended up leading to burnout in her life. And when she led to this burnout, she was going through depression and a bunch of emotional problems. And going through that journey, she essentially had to rebuild herself and to learn how to bring herself out of that depression and out of these negative states. And one thing that I've discussed before and something that I really resonated with her is when you're getting yourself out of these depressed states, it's a combination of many different things. It's eating right, it's having a morning routine, it's meditating, it's journaling, it's exercising, it's all the above, and something that we really dive deep into. And she created this amazing journal where you can contemplate many of life's questions, where you can keep track of your patterns, can keep track of data so that you can really learn to understand yourself deeper and deeper. She also then tells us about her journey into doing a TEDx talk. And that journey was an amazing journey where she had to learn how to combine the lessons from multiple years of her life into a 15-minute speech. And that speech is something that changed her life, and she hopes will inspire many people as they get an opportunity to listen to it. Today's episode is one that I'm really excited about. I didn't know how the conversation was go because Morgan and I really had only spoken a couple times before, but I was extremely pleased with the results, and I was stoked to learn from her and also to remind myself to play a little bit more and to instill a little bit more of relaxation and just being able to be myself in my everyday life, and an encouragement that I should learn to play every single day. So if you are excited to hear how you can improve your life with a little more hustle and a little more play, then tune into this episode and let's get going. Hello, everyone, and welcome on back to another episode. Today, we have my lovely friend, Morgan Shidler. I was introduced to her through my friend, Katie Cheadle, and I'm really excited to have her here today because I've been speaking to her over the last couple days, and she's been reminding me how important it is to play in your life. And this has been something that's extremely pertinent to where I am as a person right now in my life, where I feel guilty to give myself any time to play. So if there's one thing I've learned from this podcast is that organically through the universe or just through connections and friends and family, I think everything arrives at the exact moment it should, at the exact time and place it should. And so this conversation is something that I think I'm really excited to have for myself, and I hope that the messages here today will translate and be something that a lot of you can listen to today. So first of all, thank you so much for being here, Morgan. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so what I want to do is, for those of you that don't know Morgan, I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro so you can hear who she is and what she does. So Morgan Shidler helps people enjoy their lives by bringing play to the front of their to-do list. She is the founder of Hustle and Play, a wellness program that fuses personal development with time management. With a master's in organization and leadership and 15 years experience in educational leadership, she understands how play empowers learning and is the antidote to burnout and the systematic injustices that enable it, and facilitates growth for people through the Hustle and Play guidebook, one-on-one coaching, workshops, peer learning groups, and retreats. She is also a professional photographer who loves to capture joy in all its forms and lives in Long Beach, California. She plays lots of sports and loves to hang out with her puppy Coda. And then I'm just going to add in there too that we were talking yesterday and you told me that you have done a TEDx talk,
Yes.
which I am hoping to do a TEDx talk myself one day. Nice. And I want to hear all about that process. I want to hear what it was like to go through that. And I want to hear what the topic was and basically how that went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the above. Sorry. I know that's like 3 or 4 questions all at once. Yeah. So why don't we start with what is Hustle and Play?
Yeah.
And how did that come into be? And if you could give us a little bit of background on what you do with that.
Sure. So it's all related. The TEDx talk, what is Hustle and Play? How did it come to be? So just to start from the beginning, Hustle and Play is, it's a wellness program that helps people enjoy their lives. And that happens through building in play to your schedule every day. And I know that sounds kind of simple, but it's not simple at all because we live in a world that really only values work or hustle. And that started from a very young age. And so for most of us, we have become very disconnected from what play even feels like. And so I started my career working in education, and that's a wonderful industry that is full of play. But it's also an industry that is full of hustle.
Yeah.
And the longer you're in it and the higher up you go, the more pressure it is and the less money actually. And so as I was in that industry, I was barreling towards burnout and landed in burnout in a really unexpected way where, my relationships were crumbling and my health was kind of crumbling and my career was also actually crumbling in these little ways that I didn't see coming. And so when it hit me, really wasn't sure what to do. It felt like the world was ending,
Yeah.
and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And what I really needed was that crash so that I had nothing to do for a period of time. And I found journaling, and specifically prompted journaling, that helped guide my thinking so that I could start to play more.
Yeah.
And so I put, and from that, I was able to start a photography business, which was a total pivot from my educational career. It didn't make really any sense at the time, but it made me so happy.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to play in my career. It took me to really beautiful places and have really beautiful connections with people and deliver beautiful art that I didn't know was possible.
Yeah.
And after a while, my friends were like, "What are you doing? What's happening? You are better."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, well, I've been, journaling in this specific kind of way and then planning out my time with these categories: hustle, play, push, and move. And I do that every week, and, it's helping me be better. It's helping me be well, essentially."
So my question is, so you were in education. What were you doing in education? Were you like coaching young children, or not coaching, being a teacher to young children, or were you in university, or what was that education like?
Great question. So I was running after school programs.
Okay.
Which is the play center of education. I loved it so much.
Like a daycare, or like were you taking care of kids, or were they actual like programs that they signed up for specific like specialties?
Yeah. So with public schools, I was doing elementary and middle. With public schools, often they have government contracts to essentially continue the school day from 3 to 6. But it's specifically just for play. And so you can, my programs were all very structured. We'd contract out with different organizations, and the kids would enroll in everything from sports to science to art and dance and everything in between. So I was the director of those programs. So I would coordinate these partnerships. I would lead the staff, and then, pop into the classroom if I needed to all the time because
Awesome.
people were out.
So these were more like electives where the kids weren't like being forced to take classes that were part of the normal curriculum, but more so where they could choose and enjoy what they would like, whether it would be like art or something along those lines. Okay, how fun.
Yeah, I always called it the best part of education because but it's kind of a scary part of education too, because it's pretty, especially back then, it was so unregulated, where I remember at one time I had 30 different staff members that I was supervising, anywhere from not high school educated, not out of high school yet, to PhD staff.
Okay.
And I would have to figure out how to get them on the same page. I'd have to train and have staff meetings and create cohesion with, the students. So we're all on the same page. The students are on the same page. And then these programs were in Oakland and San Francisco. So extremely diverse populations. I was much younger. So, there was just a lot of moving parts. At one point I had 3 different schools, 600 students, 30 staff, and that's not including all the school staff, the principals and things like that. A lot of moving parts, dynamics, all kinds of things that as a person kind of early in her career, while I was, really into it, I was also in grad school trying to get my master's. I had a side hustle on Airbnb because I live in the Bay Area, and you need
just
more money
to live.
And I had a robust social life. I was partying. I had, all kinds of things going on in my social life. And of course, burnout was inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
When you were in charge of this program, were you in charge of the curriculums that the children would, would you figure out what the curriculum was, or was this something given to you by the government where you're like, you have to follow this specific program?
no, usually we'd contract out with different organizations and they would bring the curriculum. But,
Like what organizations?
There were a few that I really love. One was called Destiny Arts. They did our hip hop program, and another one was called Art Esteem. They did this great art program where the kids would make murals out of, their identity. And then we had contracts with UC Berkeley for different science programs, and then other, organizations for sports. And so we had an excellent model for how those programs could be. Not all the programs are like that.
Yeah.
But I felt really fortunate to have a great organization that was, partnering that way. And then I had a great relationship with the schools we worked with. So I feel like I had a best case scenario, and it was still very, very high pressure, very low resource. But I just, I loved it. I miss it to an extent. I don't miss the politics of it all, but I miss the kids for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
And so at what point did you end up getting to this transition when you were feeling that you were getting burnt out? Because this led you basically to the next transition of your life, right? Was it just like one day you were like, up and I'm done with this job. I can't do this anymore. I'm quitting. Did you just like bail on everyone? Or was it this slow, gradual transition? Like what happened?
I got fired.
You got fired. Got it.
I mean, I think the official term was layoff,
Yeah.
But it was mid-school year, that never happens. And it was devastating that way. Like I had never known anyone to lose their job mid-school year. I didn't really know that was possible. There was so much going on that semester. I had started dating somebody that I was supervising. It was a little controversial.
Gotcha.
But also another person that I was supervising had a brain aneurysm like 4 months before, not even, maybe 3 months before, totally became brain dead, and I was in the hospital with him. I took over all his responsibilities. So I felt that at that time that, these schools rested on my shoulders. I was the only one who knew and could do, and, I had a lot of ego attached to the role that I was playing at that time. And when I was laid off, it was like, oh, they don't even want me. Like I don't even know who I am outside of this position. I was so humiliated. I was so scared. I had just bought a condo about a year prior. And also simultaneously, I mentioned I had a side hustle on Airbnb. All the laws had changed about Airbnb. So that side hustle had gone away maybe 3 or 4 months prior to that. So I went from 3 incomes down to 0 in 6 months with a new condo mortgage. And I was just like, oh, I'm done. Like, this is, I don't know, that's a wrap. Like, what do you even do
Your
with
entire world was collapsing around you.
Yes.
Yeah, you lost your job. You were controversially dating somebody you probably shouldn't have been. And at the same time, you lost your income.
I
He
feel
was
like
great.
it was okay to date him, but I didn't go about it in the best way.
Got it.
But yes, in the eyes of like how it came out and like what was going on, I think, maybe it wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah, gotcha.
But
and so everything started to collapse. And then were you like working this program because it was a requirement for your master's degree, or were you just doing it just because it was something that was correlated to what you were learning?
No, actually, I thought I was gonna be a lawyer. So
Perfect.
yeah, no, my undergrad is in political science, and I'm super committed to social justice. And leaving college, I was like, I want to be a public defense lawyer. That's where I want to focus. And I got a job in a law firm. I think it was like real estate law. And I was like, oh, this is not what I
Not for me.
I just was like, oh, this is a lot of reading. Like, it's just like a lot of people reading and dissecting and not a lot of, arguing and,
Yeah.
And so
No, everybody thinks it's just in the courtrooms arguing like you see on the TV. It's nothing like that. You're most of the time just a professional email responder, and you're researching the law, and you're responding to motion papers, and it's not the
Discovery.
same. Yeah, it's not what they portray it in the movies whatsoever. That's like less than 1% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did that
Yeah.
because law school is expensive and I think I
Yeah.
would have been very disappointed. Anyway, so I got a job at the law firm, was like, oh, this is miserable. I think I lasted 3 months and just took a quick part. And also my mom passed away right when I graduated college. So I was very, grief stricken, lost, just not sure at all what to do with myself. So I had like started college with this lawyer track. She dies. I get the job at the law firm. I'm like, I don't know. I can't even function here. This is not right for me.
Yeah.
Take what I think to be a very temporary, quick after school job that like, whatever, it's 3 hours a day. I can ride my bike there.
Yeah.
And it was with the YMCA, and the YMCA actually had a really good training program where you would get in and they would teach you about all the careers that they had for you. And so at that time I was like, oh, I didn't even know this was possible. And my boss was super cool. She was just this like kind of young professional, and she had this cool, I remember she had this cool husband that like worked for music industry. And I don't know, I just was like, oh, maybe I could like stick around in this. And I loved it so much. I just really enjoyed the process of it all.
Yeah. Like you mean like helping the kids, or just like the
being
process
with the
of being in
kids and
charge?
just like laughing and seeing them laugh, and just the spaciousness of that world, the after school world. There was no pressure. There was no standardized tests. The parents love you. You have a really good relationship with them because you're caring for their kids when they're working. They're so grateful. The relationships are deep. I think teachers don't always get that opportunity. It's a different kind of relationship, right? It's your learning, it's your reading, it's your math, it's your future, and so for me, it's like, no, it's just like we're hanging out, we're
You
cool,
just got a
like
chance
we're
to
socializing.
play and hang out with the kids. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a completely different relationship.
So it was super healing for
Yeah.
me at that time. Plus, I was a stable adult in a very unstable world. And so I moved up like fairly quickly into leadership roles. And, that's when I went back for my master's, and really was, as I got deeper into urban education and all the politics around that, I felt really passionate about being somebody who, gives a fuck in that world. And, loved it. And I think I got so many skills because that industry was so open.
Yeah.
That I learned how to lead diverse groups of people and have lots of different kinds of workshops and, supervise staff of all levels and, work with very diverse populations and, have my ass handed to me because I'm doing it wrong all the time. But I felt like I gained so many skills at a young age.
Yeah. How old were you when you were doing this?
22 to, let's see, I got fired. I don't even say fired. Like usually I say laid off, but today I'm saying fired. That's fine.
Tomato.
That was, let's see, 2015. So that would have made me 33.
Oh, wow. So you did this for almost
Long
10 years.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess what ended up leading to you getting laid off? Was it just, were you losing focus? Were you just like depressed? What was going on like internally and externally?
Yeah. So it's so funny because, not funny, but when I created my TED Talk, it's called Becoming Well in a Culture of Burnout. So I focused in on these about 18 months prior to getting laid off because it was like all these different things. So at the time, I would have told you, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Fuck my boss. She's crazy,
Yeah.
But when going through the process of writing the TED Talk, which requires, to be very concise, all these different things had happened. I could have done a whole TED Talk on any one of those things, but it forced me to be like very sequential about, there was the relationship, there was the aneurysm. A year before that, I'd had a really bad scooter accident, broke my jaw. And the day after that, my best friend had an even worse scooter accident and almost died. And so she was in intensive care hospital for weeks and weeks, and it took about a year for her to recover. While I was like wired shut for 6 weeks, I went back to work. I couldn't really heal from that because I was so worried about her. And I was in the type of work that did not support recovery or healing or anything. So I was back at work with a wired jaw, like talking like this for 6 weeks, Anyways, all this stuff stacked up on it. So leading up to the layoff, I don't even know, honestly. Like, I don't really remember. I know I was drinking a lot. I know I was probably smoking cigarettes. Like, I know I was not sleeping. I don't think I was knowingly depressed. I don't usually skew towards depression. I think anxiety is my, special sauce.
Yeah, I mean, they're cousins.
Yeah, right. Like, I probably was depressed.
I don't
just
think
wasn't
that you can
presenting as depressed.
Yeah, I don't know if you can have depression without anxiety, right? So,
or vice versa.
one and the same, yeah.
But it was dark,
Yeah.
it was dark. And I know that was showing up at work, but I really couldn't tell you how.
Gotcha.
So I'm sure it was just chaotic energy.
Yeah.
All I know is what it's like to be around people now, because I am so, thank God, I am so far from that. And it's been years now that I know when I'm near somebody like that now. I can spot it, the energy that radiates from somebody who's in that is inescapable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something you feel. It was something I was reading. I do book club with my law firm, and we're reading the Aubrey Marcus book, like Own Your Day. And the last chapter, a big part of it was talking about how, when you're in a room with somebody and they're feeling, angry or they're mad, you're going to feel angry or mad.
Yeah.
When somebody is feeling depressed, you're going to feel that. Or let's say that your coworker is sighing because he's stressed out about how much work that they have, and you're 10 feet away from them and they're just sighing all day. It's going to make you feel like that. If there's definitely something I've learned as an attorney, whenever you're around somebody that's having a stronger emotional reaction to something than you, it takes a lot to not let them shake you, but most of the time the higher energetic vibration is going to affect everyone around them.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's something that's easily recognizable, especially when you're in a place that you've healed. I think better than others, for lack of a better term, but then you can easily start to recognize, it's almost like seeing yourself. You're like, oh yeah, I was that person. That's why it's so easily recognizable, because you were so familiar with that energy for so long. And so now you can just see it in a moment. You're like, oh yeah, this person might need this help. This is what they're going through. And you immediately are sensitive to it because it was so familiar for so long.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the good news is it's, not fixed forever, right? Like, I think sometimes when you're in that space, you can't see, right?
Yeah.
And so, I work with folks now who may or may not be in that space. I'm actually trying to move away from that, because I think there's a different set of needs when you're in that, kind of dark place. But it's not fixed, and with the right focus and the right help or support, you can come out of it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I think for me it was, losing everything at once, and I don't recommend that. I don't think that's the way to go. But I do think the answer is to go really slow, and in the scheme of things, that feels sometimes like torture, to just kind of, not stop everything, but kind of, and just say, all right, I'm just going to be in touch with myself for a little bit. Give yourself a small amount of time to do introspection of some kind, some reflection, whether that's by yourself in a book or with a therapist or, a close, a close relationship. I didn't have that at the time, so it's hard to know, is that the right way with a personal relationship? Because sometimes that can be putting too much on somebody, but either way, taking time for yourself can feel like death almost. Nope, everything is going to fall. Everything relies on me.
Yeah.
Everything is going to suffer. And it's actually really good practice to see nope, everything is going to be okay without you. In fact, everything is probably going to be better if you can get a handle on you.
Yeah. And people think the world's going to fall apart if they're not there. But the truth of the matter is that if you don't take care of yourself, everything will fall apart faster, right?
Yes.
And this is it's something that actually I talk about with my team. we have a core value at our firm. Everybody always says we put our clients' needs first. We actually say the opposite. We
Right.
put our team's needs first
love
and then
that.
our clients' needs after that. Because the bottom line is if we're not doing okay and we're not able to support each other, or we're not in a good state of mind, how the hell am I supposed to help other people with their problems? So we
Yeah.
prioritize ourselves and then other people. And then I had a question for you. When you were saying that you can't like fix it, are you just saying that we're always going to be struggling with these things throughout our life, and that is like you said that like it's never just completely fixed? I'm guessing you mean
Oh,
that.
no, sorry. I meant like it's not fixed, like it's set. Like it's, we can fix it,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I
That
agree
wasn't
with you.
fixed.
Yeah, and I guess my thoughts were, there will always be things that creep back,
Of course.
but it's one of those things. It's like once you learn something, you can't unlearn something.
Exactly.
If you choose to go back to that old way, then you're choosing to be unconscious, which that's a whole nother set of problems where
Right.
you're literally consciously making a decision to go back, which can happen through addiction or just going back to old habits. But it's something I like. When I was listening to Tony Robbins the other day, he's like, the moment I feel those emotions come through, I have a 90-second rule. I feel through those emotions. I let them fully envelop me. I'll be as angry as I want to be or as sad as I want to be. And I just feel it. I move through it and then I continue on. And, he jokes, he's like, of course, the 90-second rule in the beginning, it was like the 4-hour rule, because it
right.
doesn't happen immediately.
Right.
But basically, as you become more and more aware that you're falling back into those old habits or you're going back down that emotion, you then begin to stop it faster and faster and faster instead of letting it take over you and control you and put you back into those old patterns.
Right. And, for me, what I was doing, immediately after the layoff and, the subsequent year where I wasn't working much or I was just trying to figure out what my next moves were. I mean, I was piecing together income in ways that was very humbling for somebody with a master's degree and, leadership roles and all this stuff. But what I didn't know I was doing this, but I was developing practices which was a path to wellness. Practices like weekly journaling, weekly mapping out my time with intention, not just letting my calendar dictate what I'm going to do every day. All of that, just those two things, made sure that I was walking, exercising, exploring play that didn't cost money because I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Right? So I had developed leading up to then, play to me was, going out with my friends, getting drinks, getting dinner, whatever happened after that. All of that cost a lot of money. At that time, I didn't have it. So I was like, all right, like, what am I going to do for fun?
Yeah.
And it got me back to hiking, nature, crafting, collaging, picking up my camera for myself, which I've always been a photographer, but just taking it with me because now I had the time. I wasn't working. And so all of those things, which felt like ways to fill the time at the time, turned into these healing modalities that got me back to myself.
Yeah.
And like you said, once you feel that, once you experience that, you can't go back unless you're a masochist. I mean, you can.
You can. 100% you can. It was a conversation that I had with somebody the other day. A couple months ago, I was dealing with something that made me really depressed. And like, I was dealing with like chronic depression for sure for like a couple years in a row. And then I've worked past that. But I went back into my old habits for a moment. I was eating really badly. I was, going out and partying a lot. And I just like felt myself going back down the old patterns, but I immediately recognized, and it's like, but I was so depressed again. I was consciously choosing to drown out my thoughts and to drown out my feelings. And so, I was being a masochist because I knew that all those things I was doing was bad. And thank God I just did it for like a week. But I also, in a weird way, I was like, I just need to do this. And then it reaffirmed to me that I do not need to do this. And so it was,
don't, in fact.
I don't in fact need any of this shit anymore because it made me feel way worse after than I did when I was living, in this more conscious way. And a lot of people have asked me, how did I get out of my depression? It's exactly the way you described it. It's like, there's not, first of all, the pills that you take that get you out of depression, they've done so many studies showing you that they actually propitiate the depression because you are then required to take this pill, which is telling yourself every day, I am depressed, and without this, I cannot get out of my depression. And these psychoactive drugs are, from what I've heard doctors like Dr. Kelly Brogan and other specialists speak about it.
Yeah.
They're about 10 to 100 times more addictive than the worst street drugs. And you
Yeah.
literally can't get out of these without having crazy chemical imbalances, which lead to suicidal tendencies and all kinds of problems.
Right.
But the way out of depression, from all the books that I've read and just from my own experience, it's not one thing. It's what you're talking about. It's doing everything that's necessary to heal yourself, which is, how do you start your day?
Right.
How do you wake up in the morning? Do you drink water? Do you, eat a good meal? Are you doing hobbies? Are you actually doing things that are good for you? Like for you, it's photography, right?
Right.
For me, it's like I'm learning how to play the violin right now, right? And so
Cool.
it's like little things like that
Yeah.
where it just one thing builds on another. Eating right,
Yeah.
spending time with friends and family, reading good books, listening to good music.
Play.
Yeah, and play.
I mean,
And
that's everything you're describing right
yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess I never thought about it that way. It's play.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think what is crazy, I start my TEDx talk talking about the wellness industry because
Yeah.
it is a $1 trillion industry, multi-trillion dollar industry.
Yeah.
And it is that because the market is there, the need is there. People are not okay. 70%. When I did my TEDx talk last year, it was 60% of American adults. Now it's 70% of American adults report that they are in a perpetual state of burnout. And our healthcare system gives 2% of energy to mental health. So of course the private sector is like, zoop, here we go. And that is needed. And it's wonderful that there are all these options. But as an individual, you're like, oh my God, there's all these options. Do I juice cleanse? Do I do the bar class? Do I go to the retreat? Do I do the therapy? Do I do the life coach? And the answer is play. What do you do for play? That is you are born with that. If you can find your play, then you can plug in to the parts of the wellness industry that you need. And that is hard work. Like that is, there are layers to uncover. That's where the journaling comes in. That's where lots of different, the program now that Hustle and Play has become is robust because to be able to play, you need to know what it is that you love. And so I always start with, what did you love to do as a kid before all the things, right? For me, that was sports. I was playing soccer from 4 years old. Why did I stop playing soccer? And I'll answer that for myself, and I don't know the answer for lots of people, but it became too competitive and I wasn't good enough, right? I could play through high school, but I wasn't the star. I wasn't going to play in college. I played a little bit in my 20s co-ed, and like playing with men co-ed at that age was very hard. And I got back to it a few years ago, and it was like, oh my God, like my soul opened up. I healed so many parts of me, and all the stories about soccer being X, Y, and Z, anything different than what it is, which is a game of kicking a ball with my foot. And I expanded, I grew. I felt similar when I put a pair of rollerblades on when I moved down to Southern California. And so once you start to tap into that feeling of play, you can heal enough to say, all right, I have this is wonderful. And I really actually notice when I don't feel that way in parts of my life, and that helps me focus. Okay, I'm not sleeping, so like what's the deal there? Or I'm feeling really anxious around this person, what's the deal there? And I can start to kind of slowly bring in the wellness offerings that are available to me to maybe help me versus when we're so burned out or we're so confused or we're so anxious or depressed, we're like, I could go in any direction. And so I'm going to do everything. And maybe that is a starting point. But I think it can be confusing. And what if we just started with play? Like how do I find my play?
Yeah. I was listening to you because I played soccer since I was 4 too, and then I stopped playing for a while too around college because I wasn't good enough to like make the college team and stuff. Right. And then it became this thing of exactly what you said. I'm not good enough. I don't feel like I should be playing this. But then I definitely did get into it when I was a little bit older. And it's reminding me that I need to go back and play some soccer again.
Come play with me.
Yeah.
Palos Verdes.
I'm down. I am actually down.
Got a really nice group of
Yeah.
people.
And also when you're talking too, it's just, I think it's exactly what you said. It's like, remember when you were a kid, but what comes to my mind is just keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, a lot of people, I feel like they tell themselves that they don't know what they want and they don't know what they like and they don't know what they enjoy. But I think that's the biggest crock of bullshit, in my opinion. You know what you like. You know what makes you happy. You know what you enjoy. But what's in the way is all the stories that you tell yourself, all the things that your parents tell you, all the things that your friends tell you. But if you just sit, it's a simple exercise like, do I enjoy this? Yes or no. It's not something that's confusing. And I feel that within an instant, if I just ask myself that question, I feel it within my gut if it's actually something I like or I don't.
Right.
And I can feel those stories trying to tell me that I don't, but I know that I really do enjoy that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, do you like pizza? Yes or no, right? Like these are like just like a base example, but if you can answer that question, you can probably answer what you enjoy doing for fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. You
Yeah.
know, I think that, and I think it gets hard when so much of what, like I said, what is socially supported as play are these big things: vacations, massages, girls' nights, boys' nights, concerts. All of that is wonderful, and we need to play every day. Like, this is a daily thing.
Yeah.
And all of those things, I think, usually are coated in some kind of substance, whether that's weed or alcohol or other things. And so when we are engaging in play exclusively with substances as well, it changes the way we can tell, do I like this or do I not?
Yeah.
And so for me, as I was exploring this, I was noticing that more and more. And, part of what my program has habit tracking. And so you can pick different things you want to look at. How much water do I drink? How much sleep did I get? And so I used to track how much I drank, how many beers did I have or cocktails or whatever, just to kind of keep me honest. And then I would do Sober January every year. And in 2020, I went to Thailand in March because I had sold my condo and that was the plan. Sell my condo in December, go to Thailand in March and make all my life decisions. And I decided before that trip, like, I'm not going to drink on this trip. I've never done a sober vacation before. And then, the apocalypse descended upon us while I was there. And and so I just, when I made my way back, which was challenging, but it was just like, I don't think I really want to start drinking again right now, like, as, being isolated and all of that. And I know a lot of other people were going the other direction.
Yeah.
So anyways, I ended up quitting drinking. Like, I just, as time went on, and I realized I was feeling better and better and better. And of course, exploring play in the pandemic was such a mindfuck, and that is when Hustle and Play was released. And so people were like, how do I play in the pandemic? You can't play in the pandemic, in the stories, like you were saying, like the stories we have about play are wild. And I didn't know that until I made this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there is so much work to do around this topic.
Yeah.
And you can play in a pandemic. You can play when you're sick. You can play anytime. But if you only associate play with being out and being with others and being under the influence of something, then no, you don't know what play is for self. And so it's been interesting to see the interplay of substances and how they play a role in this in our world. For me, I just had to take booze out, and as soon as I took it out, my play exploded, because all of a sudden I am very clear about, what I thought was play is absolutely not play. Like, I hate a dive bar. I never want to go to another dive bar in my life. I don't know why I spent, it's like, whatever the story is about those things being fun, fine, that's fine for other people. But for me, I'm like, just smells like vomit and sadness in here. So I'm going to go outside and spend my days that way. But, I think all of that's to say, I think we have stories about play that are under the influence a little bit. And it doesn't really resonate. So when you take that out and you're like, actually, I just want to make friendship bracelets, or, you know, so I get the wonderful position of helping people find their play. And it's the most joyful position to be in.
Yeah.
And people do the weirdest shit, you know, like people like to go rock hounding and find rocks on their hikes. People like to do birding. People like to ride horses. I mean, this, I guess it's not the weird, you know, no offense to this community of people, but like
No, of course.
stuff that I have no exposure to, and they just light up, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, and of course, and I understand you're just, for you it's a little bit weird, but to them it's the greatest thing ever. And
Yes.
and
New, I should say new.
New, right?
New to me.
Yeah. What is rock hounding? Sorry.
I know. I mean, what is rock hounding?
They go find like specific rocks and they collect them.
Yes.
How cool.
Yes.
Right. My dad might be a rock hounder and I didn't know it.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, when we go places, I just see him collecting rocks and putting them in his pocket. I'm like, what are you doing with those? He's like, I'm bringing them home for later. All right,
You
great.
putting it in your bag?
He just puts them in our front yard. He has rocks from like everywhere. I'm like, all right, cool. This is his thing.
Dope.
Yeah, and you know, that's what makes him happy.
Yes.
So yeah, I have a lot of weird friends that do a lot of weird things. So I understand that. I also, you know, I've had the realizations that you've had too, in the sense that I find it very strange that when I do go out with people, it's like people feel compelled to drink alcohol. Yeah. It's like we can't just like go out and hang out. And for me, I've never been a huge fan of alcohol, but don't get me wrong, I do like to drink. You know, that is something that I do enjoy at least like once or twice a month. For me, it's like it is a tool. It helps me, you know, release stress and just to relax every once in a while. And
Totally.
I have so much going on all the time between all the things that I'm doing. For me, it is a tool to help me just shut off those things for a night and relax. So I do enjoy it. And, you know, you made fun of the dive bar things, but every once in a while I like going out with the boys and we go to a dive bar and play some pool.
Good.
And that's like, yeah, and good.
I love it.
Yeah, but it's just like, but every person is going to find joy in different things, right? And listening to you, it just reminds me, right? A lot of times we just think that there's only the same like 5 or 10 things that we can do, right? We're going to go to the movies, maybe go bowling if we're lucky, maybe go to an arcade, but like I've never heard of rock hounding. I haven't heard of these activities, you know, maybe do a game night, but it's just a reminder that there is unlimited amount of things that you can find to do in the world that you can enjoy and that don't revolve around getting intoxicated and they revolve around just hanging out with others and spending time with the people you love or maybe spending time with yourself. But you just have to take the time to explore that and to find what makes you happy and what inspires you.
Right.
Yeah.
And those connections with others or with self are going to be much deeper if you are truly in play, right?
Yeah.
So another example is, you know, I lived in the Bay Area my whole life. I moved to Long Beach later in 2020. And, you know, it was still like deep pandemic times. I don't really know many people, but I pushed myself to go play beach volleyball. I'm like, I'm going to live my SoCal life, like beach volleyball, right?
Yeah.
And I met so many amazing people doing that because it meets so many of my values. I'm outside. I'm at the beach.
Yeah.
I'm playing a sport. And contrary to how it looks, beach volleyball is not that hard, you guys. Anyone can play. It's actually like pretty accessible. And so everyone out there was like me, right? Like that wants to be outside on a Saturday morning, wants to be physically active, and doesn't take themselves too seriously because it's kind of a weird sport. You're falling all around. You know, there's no way to like look cool all the time while you play beach volleyball.
Yeah.
And so you're laughing, you're being silly. And I think that the more we start to explore this part of ourselves, the braver we become, right? In the beginning, it's like, I don't know how to play. This is stupid. I guess I'll read this book, right? But then you find a book that you really love and you're like, actually, this is cool. Okay, I'm going to read, and now I'm going to read more. Oh, well, now actually I wonder if there's other people that like this book or books like this. So let me just go to this book club. It's probably stupid. I don't care. Blah, blah, blah. You go to the book club. There's one person there that you really like. Okay, so now you're at the book club.
Yeah.
You've made at least one connection.
Yeah.
And then that builds and builds and builds and builds, right? So like now with my beach volleyball, I've been playing for 2 years. This is how I met our mutual friend, Katie. This is why I'm in this room.
Yeah.
Right? Very non-linear.
God, I was wondering where you were going with this. Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's beautiful the way that you described it because I always try to take things to, like, a lot of times in my life, I just feel like, you know, like the other night, my friend my friend Teague asked me to go to dinner with her and my friend Molly, and I just was planning to go to dinner with them. And then we were at dinner, and she's like, do you want to come to the show with us afterwards? It was Sunday night. I'm like, I have work tomorrow. Something inside me was like, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to go with you guys. I'm
Right.
going to go check it out.
Yeah.
And we went to the show, and like at that show, I ended up like having a deep drop in with like one of my buddies at this event. He's sitting there like crying, talking about like relationships. And it was just like understanding that everything you do, if you just follow your intuition and you're like, okay, what is being offered for me here? What am I being sent here to do, to connect with somebody else? And just realizing that every single thing that you do you can be bringing something to the table, or someone can be bringing something to you.
Yep.
And so, you were just following your intuition. You're like, I like volleyball. It's fun. It's good. And who knew that, multiple years later through meeting Katie, it would get you on this podcast.
Right.
Yeah. It's just kind of like tugging on the threads of the things that you actually enjoy and like to play with.
Right. And I think that runs counter to what we're taught
Yeah.
about what you should focus on.
Yeah.
Right? You're taught to put your head down, work really hard,
Yeah.
set a goal, work backwards from that goal, tunnel vision on that goal. And while I think there's, something to that, I'm not saying you should chuck that all the way. But what happens when we have focus on something that doesn't have an end goal, that
Yeah.
is open-ended, that is totally for us in real honesty, that requires us to tap into our intuition, right? You couldn't go play beach volleyball and have the outcome that I had, right? Or
Yeah.
anybody, right? That requires me to know myself enough to be like, you really want to do this, you really have to try this.
Yeah.
And so if all of us are operating in that space, then these magical outcomes are presenting to us in ways that are a reward for our courage and for our capacity to know ourselves.
Yeah.
And we will still achieve, right? Like the achievement is not sacrificed
Yeah.
for that prioritization of self. And so it's not that we want to get rid of our goals, but we want to be really loose with them. Like
Yeah.
really, yes, I'm tapped in. Yes, I'm focused there. But the second it doesn't feel good, or it feels kind of contradictory to, my core essence, which is expressed in all these other ways of my life, then maybe that goal is not for me.
Yeah. And what comes to mind too is if you're going to try anything and you're going to go for it, like do it well, right? Like give it your all.
Yes.
And don't do stuff with a half-ass attitude, meaning like you're trying to like resenting being there the whole time. And you're like, well, I'm not sure about this. If you're going to show up somewhere, be the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
give it your all, give it 100%, because having that closed off rejection energy is not
Yeah.
going to make you open and receptive to
Yep.
what you're there to learn or what's there to be presented to you. And so when you
Yep.
show up for something, always give it your all and give it 100%.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's that like curious, experimental energy
Yeah.
that is more playful, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm going to try something. I don't know if I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you haven't put focus on that in a long time. I might not like it. There's plenty of things I've tried that I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really like it. Like, when I first moved down here, I was trying everything. I still kind of am in that space, but
Yeah.
I have more people to do it with and a better idea of how, the rhythm is. But when I first got here, I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to go to this art opening, or I'm
Yeah.
going to go to that museum, and getting there by yourself. And you're just kind of like, I don't know, it's not that fun. I drove a while and
Yeah.
parked
it
and did this
happens.
thing. But it's still like coming off of that and being proud of myself that I tried.
Yeah, you
and
just
saying,
made an effort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
being like, well, I won't do that again. So
Yeah.
I can take that off the list and
Yeah,
put
sometimes
my
that'll
energy
save you
to
for
something else.
Yeah, sometimes that'll save you from future problems later. You're like, I
Yeah.
actually already went down this road and I didn't like it. So that's
Right.
fair. Yeah.
Right.
So now we're at the point where you've come back from Thailand.
Yeah.
You got home. You decided to create Hustle and Play. And this is about 2020 at this point, right?
Well, it actually made it in 2019,
2019.
which
Okay.
is why I believe in divine timing,
Okay.
because I had been kind of, piecing it together, using it for myself at that point in different ways since 2013.
Yeah.
When I got laid off is when I added the reflection prompt. So that's
Okay.
2016.
Okay.
Around 2017, 2018 is when my friends were, what are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
And it used to be in the form of like a 5-star notebook and pages glued in it that I
Yeah.
made out of Google Docs. And in 2019, a designer friend of mine was like, do you want me to like put some design on that so at least you can just print it out and you don't have to glue these pages? And I was
Yeah.
like, yes. And all of 2019, I considered making it, but also I had a robust photography career at that time. Like it was growing, the business was good. I could see the future with it. I was like, I don't really want another business.
Yeah.
But I really loved this thing and I felt like it could really help people. And my really good friend, shout out Brooklyn Wright, gave me really great advice and was like, listen, if you're going to go that route, just you love this thing, right? Like this is your happy place. This is the thing that you love to turn to. And, you know, I was like, yes, like I love it. She was like, no matter what, do not make something that changes your relationship to that. So like, don't go hard on the business side and like take the joy away.
Yeah.
And so then in 2019, I just made a commitment to myself, like, all right, I'll do a Kickstarter. I'll see what happens,
Yeah.
right? If nothing else, I'll just print a run of books and I don't have to, you know, and that will pay for that and I don't have to do anything else. So I did a Kickstarter October 2019
Okay.
and the books are ready January 2020. So in my heart, I thought, you know, this is my community. Like, I'll make these books and give them out. And, you know, they wanted to support me, but like, no one really wants this thing. It's too comprehensive. It's too involved.
Yeah.
And I had sold my condo in December 2019. So Kickstarter October, sell my condo. I do not have a plan of where I'm going to live. I am going to stay with my buddy with an extra room. I'm going to go to Thailand and make my decisions. And so all my stuff was in storage. And you know, apocalypse descends and I'm like, I don't know what to do. This is not the time to make big life decisions. I knew I wanted to leave the Bay Area. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And everyone I knew was freaking out. And I wasn't. I mean, I was like, I knew I was grounded enough to say this isn't the time to make big life decisions, but I'm actually really good. Like my feet are on the ground. I feel like very attuned and very calm. And also I have this tool, you know, if folks want to learn, like let's actually gather virtually and talk about what this is. I'll give out the rest of the books that I have. And we started meeting in 2020. And because I didn't have a place to live, I actually just went on a long road trip for like 8 months. I just got a roof tent and like camped all around and got hotels and things. And I had like a whole spiritual awakening that year because I was in nature so much and teaching folks how to use this tool. And so that's so to me, had the pandemic not happened, I don't know that Hustle and Play would exist. And
Why do you say that? I don't understand.
Because I think it was this crash of awareness of time management that I mean, maybe it would exist. I don't know. But I think like all of it felt like the pandemic was everyone else's when I got laid off, right?
Gotcha.
Like when I got laid off and everything stopped.
Got it. So you had already been down the process that a lot of people were
Yeah.
now needing to go through. And so because you were a couple years ahead through your stuff, you
Yeah.
were able to present this to them and help guide them through the darkness.
It felt like that.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, I don't know where you go from here either, but I know that you are the only one that can guide you there.
Yeah, of course.
And so this tool can help you find you again and again and again. And you get to decide what you do with that information. So let me, you know, facilitate you using this tool. And so when multiple people were gathering and I'm facilitating that process, the healing was so exponentially faster than say what I went through because I was by myself, right?
Yeah. So were there like specific people and like books that you just like had maybe taken ideas and like concepts from, or like was this a combination of just like 10 years of you doing a bunch of different things and being
Totally.
like these are the
Yes.
best things? Like who were your main inspirations?
I'm trying to think of specific people, but I think that I took specific practices. So I don't know who to cite for what,
Yeah, no
but
worries.
what I noticed, I was listening to a lot of podcasts of successful business and spiritual people, and there was so much overlap about what everybody said that they did.
Yeah.
Everybody had structure to their day.
Yeah.
Everybody had a gratitude practice.
Yeah.
Everybody had journaling of some kind.
Everybody
meditates.
Yeah.
And some of them had habit tracking
Yeah.
of some kind.
Yeah,
And so
all the most successful people really track everything down the most statistics as possible. Yeah.
And so I wanted that in one place. I was like, I don't want 5 different notebooks. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I want it in one place, and I want to see how it works together every day. And when I made it, I lived in the Bay, and I want the weather too, because the weather there is insane. Like, if I only get a sunny day once a week, I need my life to move around so that I'm out there in it.
Yeah.
And so what I started to see is that when I build my days according to the finite amount of energy that I have, not the amount of hours, but the amount of energy, I got better, right? I was more rested. I was more present in everything that I did. And so in the pandemic, when I was working with folks and they had more time, it was just teaching folks to connect to the energy that stuff you do takes, right?
Yeah. I also just want to say I loved what you just said. You do things based off of the amount of energy you have in the day, not the amount of time that you have in the day.
Absolutely.
Because this is something
not created equal.
No, it's not created equal, because definitely I notice as like when there's times where I'm super busy, I'll like get after it for like 4 days in a row, and then I'm like the next 3 days I'm just spent.
Yeah.
I'm like done. I can't even do anything.
Yep.
And so it's true that we have the same 24 hours every day, but the way that you use those 24 hours will have a direct benefit or negative effect on the tomorrow.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And again, we're not taught that. We are if you look at our school system,
Yeah.
you wake up, you go learn algebra, then you run a mile, then you learn a foreign language, then you learn chemistry, and then and then you go play sports, and then you work a job, and then what are we doing to our kids and to ourselves?
Well, they're preparing them for a 9 to 5. Right. That's all they're doing.
Or in this world, a 9 to 10. You know what I mean?
9 to 10.
We have how much work are we expected to do? It's not sustainable. Even the most successful people, if you are working that much, what's happening at home?
Yeah. And I mean, we just have like so much information now on the proper way to learn, on what's the most effective way to learn, right? And understand that everybody learns differently, but we still just have the same standardized way to teach everyone everything, right? Yeah. And that's something that I don't know will change, right? Because from what I understand, it's like they want to grade people and rank them based off of certain things. So it's like, how are they going to do that in another way? And I'm not sure, right? And unless you're extremely wealthy to be able to escape that system and maybe to hire prior tutors or to go send to a very specialized school, it's like you're just going to be stuck in part of the system, and you just kind of have to go through the motions. Like my brother, he's just like, he doesn't believe in the school system whatsoever. He's like, I'm homeschooling my kids. I don't believe in it. I think that it's too much. It's like, he's like, I was a product of it and I hated every moment of it. And I'm like, good for you. Like, I commend you. I don't know if I would go that far when I have kids one day, but that's the decision that he's made. And so, yeah, I hear you in a lot of those ways.
Yeah. I mean, I have so much empathy for parents and that decision because, I mean, that's a whole other podcast. But I think, that system has not caught up with the world that we live in. And our world has changed rapidly in the last 20 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's a system that moves very, very slowly without a lot of change. And so all the more reason, I think, for us to, as adults who have, more agency over their life and their time, to really look thoughtfully about how you spend every single day.
Yeah.
Most people have more freedom than they think. But it's the story of I don't have time, I'm too busy, that requires so much work, right? To release.
100%.
And we are too busy and we don't have a lot of time to start, right? So it's like just kind of meeting ourselves where we are and saying, okay, right now I don't, and I'm going to work on this. In 6 months from now, I want to have a little more time and be a little less busy. These things are not light switches.
Yeah.
And I think so when I'm working with folks for like the entire first year, I'm like, we're just doing assessment. We're doing audit. We're
Yeah.
practicing naming what we do and the category it falls into. So I ask folks to categorize their tasks: hustle, play, push, and move. Hustle is like all work-related stuff, obligations, chores, errands, stuff like that. Play is stuff we like to do for fun.
Okay.
Push is anything outside your comfort zone, something that challenges you, including doing less, right? If your comfort zone is to go, 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 then your push might be to like say no.
That one hits hard.
Yeah, really hard. I saw your energy. Like,
That's good.
No, I got pushed. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, yeah, for sure. And I was like, wait, but push is also slowing yourself down.
right.
That's a
Like
good
in our
perspective.
world, push honestly is, so like, there's that. And then
Yeah,
move, which
I was
is
like telling you before we came on the podcast, that's been like a big part of my journey, is the push to just allow myself to play and like feeling
Yes.
safe or comfortable in a place where it's like, no, I can just take today off and I
Yes.
don't have to work, 8 hours. I can just actually just chill. Like that's the whole reason I became my own boss, is when
Right.
I'm having a tough day and
Remember?
and I just feel like I'm having an emotional breakdown. Like I can just take a day to myself. It's okay. The world's not
I'm
going
gonna
to
play
shut
with
down.
my emotional breakdown.
Yeah. I mean, this happened like last week. I was super stressed about some stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take this entire day to watch anime, and that's literally all I did
Yay.
all
Oh,
day.
good.
And I woke up the next day like I felt great. I was like ready to rip, and I
Yep,
just like
yep.
crushed my day. But like that day, just like I just don't. I was
Can't.
like super out of whack. I just mentally couldn't think straight. I was like taking phone calls, but I was like disconnected, and then I just
Yeah.
immediately decided, I'm
Can't.
taking a personal day right now in the middle of the day. And I just did that. And then, being the boss, I can still work on Saturday and Sunday. There's, I have the option
And
to do
did
it whenever
everything
I
fall
feel.
apart?
Nothing fell apart.
Right, of
Yeah. And
course.
I just actually felt way better by taking that moment to myself. Yeah. Super important. And then I was going to say, you're talking about stuff that's within the book itself.
Yes.
Would it be good to show everybody?
Yeah.
So we want to pull up, Zev, can you do that for us? So we're going to pull up some of the pages from the book so that people can understand. Also, just so people can kind of see. It's this beautiful, lovely notebook, and within this notebook, there is many different pages that have a lot of different types of activities, and like you said, it's helping to track information, to see patterns. You ask deep questions where you are trying to have people understand like how they spend their time and their energy. What page do you think would be best for him to pull up now, since we're talking about that push pull?
Yeah, well, let's start. Yeah, I sent over the summer page. So
Okay.
that's page 167, 168.
Okay.
I thought that might be relevant because we're coming into summer.
Okay.
So
And you've created, got it. So your sections are not just like I pick it up today and I start today. They're literally based off of like the seasons of the year.
Yes.
Is that for specific purposes?
yes,
Okay, got it.
I didn't know if you know this, but we are mammals.
Yeah.
And it's real.
Thank you. Yeah. No,
Most people don't. you
No,
know?
we're animals, right? And like
we are
very true.
animals.
Yeah.
And I know, so our calendar that we've created is, January to December. So it's important that we don't like ignore that this is the world that we live in, but also it's really important that we tap into the seasons and the way that our energy works with the seasons.
Yeah.
Meaning that our output is going to be very different in summer as it is in winter. And the more we can tap into how our energy shows up, the better we can build our year, our week, our life, right?
Yeah.
And so we're coming up on summer, right? I mean, I guess technically we're kind of in it, but solstice is end of June. And so the book is broken up into seasons where, you're reflecting every week, and then at the end of every month you go back and read those reflections, and then and create a monthly reflection, and then at the end of every season you go back and read all those monthly reflections. So that's why I don't think we were recording yet, but you were saying how you you journal verbally, and I asked, do you ever go back and
listen to them. Not as often as I should.
Well, because
The
thing about reflection is you're giving such valuable data and insight about who you are and what you need. And so it's actually really important to go back and assess, like, wait, what did I say? What did I need? And if you're doing that in repetition, you see patterns, you see data, right? And that helps inform how you go forward. So each season is a bit of a deep dive into the reflection and then the next 3 months. And you map things out in these categories: hustle, play, push, move.
Got it.
And so, summer is a fun time to think about play, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more challenging in winter.
Yeah, when you were deciding that you should do it based off it being seasonally, is it just because based off your experience you realize that we're just kind of like living plants, right? And we just we change with the seasons, or was it just through somebody that you learned that from, that we have different emotional responses? Where I'm just interested because I'm interested in just understanding more about how human beings work, right?
Yeah.
And so where did you learn that we are seasonal beings, or is it just your correlation that we're animals and we have the same urges as any animal would, and it's okay to have those desires, it's okay to have those urges, and also just to realize that the weather in the world has an effect? I know that was a bunch of questions all at once.
Yeah,
but
I love it because
yeah.
it's actually very related.
Yeah.
So it's been an evolution. So when I started, it was in quarters, right? Q1, Q2, this is the way we're conditioned to think.
This is how we're conditioned.
And as folks were using it, as I was using it, I was seeing patterns, how folks are showing up in our learning groups and retreats and workshops in winter is so different than how folks are showing up in fall and summer.
Yeah.
And also just doing my own reading, and the folks that I love and respect are just so tapped into nature, noticing my relationship to nature deepening, and saying this needs to be tracking the seasons,
Yeah.
And then the next level of that was, this is going to feel like a tangent, but it's going to make sense.
Yeah, no worries.
I was asked to go on a panel a couple years ago, and the question was about mental health and work. What have we learned about mental health and work since the pandemic? And as I was preparing for that, I was like, I could say what everyone is going to say, which is it's important. And now we know about mental health and we didn't know before. And I was really thinking about what I really had learned and what is the real takeaway. And I don't know how this popped into my head, but it was, if we think about our lives as a garden, we have all kinds of things going on all the time. The plants in our garden, work, relationships, hobbies, whatever. Prior to the pandemic, we thought mental health was a plant in our garden, right? It's growing, it's dead, we water it, we don't water it, it's whatever. But the truth is the mental health is the soil by which everything grows.
It's the fertilizer.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And it tracks because we inherited our soil.
Yeah.
Right? And the soil in downtown LA is very different than the soil up in Bel Air under the greenhouse. And so I answered that at the panel that way, killed it. The room, everyone was like, oh, that's so good. And I was like, my ego was great.
No, I mean, but it's resonating with me too. And I feel it when you say it, it's like shock to you all over my body because they're truth bumps, right? It's just this has been the premise of my understanding the last couple of years. It's if your mental health is not good, it affects everything, right? But even just breaking it down to your health, right? But your brain is what controls everything, right?
Yeah.
And so the better you can fix your health, the better it affects everything in your life.
Right.
And since your brain is basically the thing that's obviously your soul and your brain, but basically the decisions you're making are affecting everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we skip tending to the soil, the way our plants look varies quite a bit.
Yeah.
So from that moment on.
Yeah. Well, when you're saying that, it just reminds me of the world we live in now, right?
Yeah.
Doctors are treating the symptoms. They're all right, so this plant has
looking
this,
at the plant
has
petal.
this, but they're looking at the petal. So let's treat this petal, but what about the roots, which is really
1000%.
where the problems are. And this is how we should be approaching everything in life. It's understanding that the root cause is where you should start with all problems, and then you can work from there, and you'll be able to reverse engineer what needs to be fixed.
Yes.
So this is a lesson that everybody in the world needs to be learning at this point, because we've been treating the symptoms, we've not been treating what's causing the problems.
Right, and we're treating our plants as separate.
Yeah.
when we're all sharing and mixing soil
Yeah.
in all these different ways.
Yeah.
And
We're all part of the same garden.
yeah, it's all one garden.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my soil has been tended to differently than your soil. And so how we choose to mix, how we choose to acknowledge that maybe sometimes your soil needs more than my soil, and you can borrow from my soil if you need to.
This is I was listening to the Terrence Howard and Joe Rogan podcast yesterday. Have you listened to that one
No,
yet?
I haven't.
You changed my life. You need to definitely listen to that one.
I
But
think
like,
I've heard about it.
he was talking about plants. This isn't something that you need to listen to this podcast to understand that, but it's like plants in a community, and specifically there's like a mycelium network that connects most plants. And so mycelium is like, it's an interconnected tissue that speaks between a lot of the plants. And so let's say that there is a plant that's struggling and dying nearby the mama tree plant.
Yeah.
Guess what? That mama tree plant literally communicates with that little tree, and it's able to see that, and it uses the mycelium network to literally send nutrients to this tree that is struggling. And like, this is like the understanding that like, when you're near other people that you feel are struggling, it's because your energy is there to try to help and heal them, right? And it's up to us to use our resources to heal those around us. And on one podcast, one guy said to me, he's like, are you a cancer cell or are you a stem cell, right? Like, are you going to help people or are you going to make other people sick?
Right.
And so I'm agreeing. Yeah, I agree with you.
Right.
Cool.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, most people really resonate. I mean, that moment in that room on that panel, I was like, oh, this is going to go here and it's going to live here in a new way. And so I've actually like built out that metaphor even more where, you know, I could go into all the details, but like I have named those roots that you're describing as core values.
Yeah.
You know, your values are what grow the most important things in your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes those values get tangled up and dry, right? Sometimes we need to uproot and shake them off and trim and replant. Sometimes, you know, we need greenhouses to protect our garden so that when weather patterns come through, because they will every time, our life is hard, life is suffering. And so how do you protect your garden? Those are that, you know, the walking, the meditating, the wellness practices. And, you know, I could keep going. There's all these different components now of the garden that I have a page in the book where twice in the beginning of the year and then again in the middle of the year where it's like, how's your garden? How's your soil? How are your plants? How are your, you know, what are your core values? And then one of the central parts of the framework of the program is to focus on what I call manifestation values. So these are the values you're trying to call in to more in your life. And so you're reflecting on those values, your hustle, play, push, moving towards those values. And it's a really wonderful exploration all year long of like how to embody. So like mine this year are greatness, erotic, and magic. And so all year I'm reflecting on these three values. So that's what I'm watering my garden with.
Gotcha. No, so this is something that I did when I was during the pandemic, which is funny. I was a Tony Robbins book, Awaken the Giant Within, and this was, in my opinion, the best book I've ever read.
Check it out.
And the end of the book, the main thing we do is he basically teaches you how your brain works, teaches you how you make decisions, how you can make changes in an instant, how the quality of the words that you tell yourself will determine the quality of your life. The question of basically taking you through that process. Then he gets you to the point where he's like, okay, now that I've showed you how your brain works, he's going to show you now, you'll see this is how you've made decisions in your life. It's based off your core values. What are your core values? And then he has you list them out. Core values can be things like growth, contribution, charity, adventure, health, love. These are like core values can be mostly whatever you want it to be, but you start to realize, okay, this is why I'm living my life this way that I'm living it. So you called it manifestation values. What he calls it is, what he tells you to do is he wants you to describe the ideal sage version of yourself. What is the ideal version of Joe? And so I want you to think of that person. What does that person look like? How do they act? How do they respond to the world around them? But now, more importantly, what is ideal version of Joe's core values? And what is going to be the thing that defines him?
Same thing.
And so, you're doing the same thing. And like you were talked about in the beginning, you start realizing the more you read, the most successful people on the planet, they all do the same things. They act the same way. They have the same habits. And it's because no one's reinventing the wheel.
No.
It comes down to take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and you can go from there. And it's funny that you talk about like health and all this stuff. So like for me, my number one core value, which was something that was not on my priority list, became health. And so, because I've just realized that health waters everything else.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, if the more healthy I am, the more my brain works, the more money I make, the more I can do more things, the more I can have better relationships. And, you know, like my second core value is adventure and fun, right? My third core value is I love learning and growing. And this is part of that, right? And it's like, once you list those values and you need to order them, which is something that's actually important. I don't know if you order them in the book, but he recommends to order them because the reason is when you are making decisions, if your number one core value is health, then you're always going to try to do what's the right healthy choice. And you have that as the top priority. And so by ranking your values, it makes it a lot easier to make choices with your life because you're like, no, this is important to me. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to choose the healthy thing. Okay, between adventure or staying at home, maybe I'll choose the adventure thing because that's more important to me than, you know, staying stagnant. And so when you're able to rank them in that way, it helps you prioritize how you want to become that ideal version of yourself.
Maybe we'll rank them next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't rank them, but I do make people only pick 3.
Got it.
Because people will be like, okay, I have my manifestation values. Here's, 15 values. I'm like, you can't do that. That's too hard.
Yeah, he says he does like, I think it was like 3 to 10 or something like this, but definitely more than 3. But I can tell, I agree with you that maybe when you're just starting, it might have been better to start with just a couple. So I hear that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels complicated. Like, there's so much going on in here. That's why, like, the first year I'm working with people, I'm like, we're doing audit.
Yeah.
We're just learning this. We're learning terms. We're learning what values even are.
Yeah.
I'm learning what they feel like, when I'm in them, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning how to match what I feel in my body with what I do in my life.
Yeah.
Which takes a minute. Most people are not operating that way day to day. And I really try to hammer home, like, it's not our fault.
Yeah.
Because I work with mostly women. We're just very quick to blame ourselves. And I don't know if men do this too, but it's just like I suck at this. I'm not good at this. Like, I should, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
We just are people in this world.
Yeah.
And we've been taught to put our head down and do things a certain way.
Whether it's male or female, we all say the same
Yeah.
shit. Yeah. It's no different for you. No,
I can just
different
speak for my 97%,
for sure.
female,
Yeah. No, but it's true. And the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life, right? So if you're consistently telling yourself, why do I fucking suck?
Right.
Why am I
Why
bad
didn't
at
I
this?
achieve this goal?
Why didn't I do that?
Why don't I
right?
have?
What's wrong with me? Right.
Yeah.
And it's and that stuff will crush you over time.
Instead of, what are you proud of?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
Yeah.
What are you curious about? Those are some of my weekly reflection questions. So simple.
Yeah.
But the repetition, asking yourself what you're proud of week over week over week
Yeah.
will change everything about how you see yourself. You're like, oh, I did some shit. I did a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny that you put it that way. One of my mentors, I remember when I used to have a business coach, he was telling me, I was like, I remember this one week, I was like, I didn't do anything this week. And he's like, have you looked at your to-do list? He's like, just open your to-do list. And I want you to look at all the things that you've actually done this week. And it was like, I'd done like 100 something things. He's like, you did a lot of things this week. He's not like, I don't know what you keep thinking you haven't done anything this week. But like a lot of times we're our worst critics. And it's just like, I feel like I haven't done anything.
I mean, these are my conversations I have with people all week, every day. I'm like, okay, I know you feel like you didn't do anything, but like what you just said to me was this, that, and the other thing. And so it is a skill to teach yourself who you are and what you care about, what you are doing. Yeah. And over time, week over week over week, that repetition it changes your brain. You can't not remember. Like, so now when of course I have those thoughts. It's not like I'm immune to you suck. But then I'm very quick to be like, yeah, but let's look at the evidence.
Yeah.
You know, so like this book right here
Yeah.
is about halfway full, right? We're about halfway through the year.
It's not just about the big wins, it's about the little wins. But
Yeah.
what I will say to you is this, something that I've learned as I've gotten more and more successful, and it's something that, once again, a lot of the most successful people talk about. If you want to feel like you've done something every day, first thing you should do, for me, I know everybody says not to, but the first thing I do when I get up is I check my text message and my emails, because like I need to see if there's any fires that need to be put out for my job. But as soon as that's done, I always try to do the hardest thing I have to do that day. Because for me, that one hard thing feels like I'm moving the dial so much further than the other stuff I'm gonna have to do every single day anyways. So,
that.
and not only that, but if you keep pushing that thing off, the amount of stress you're getting by pushing it off to the point where
yeah.
you're like, I have to do it, the cost benefit of what you just did is the amount that it's hurting you and hurting everything else in your life is not worth it. So always attack the hardest thing first, and then it will make you feel like you've accomplished so much in that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I go through spurts. Like I'm very resistant to authority and power and like anyone telling me what I should do. And so like I had to spend at least 3 to 4 years working for myself, spending my mornings watching TV, drinking coffee because I could.
Yeah.
Before I got to a place where I am now, where I'm like, no, I'm going to get up and actually get some work done in the morning because I want to.
Yeah.
But it was like this weird rebellion thing.
Yeah.
And I was still able to get stuff done and whatever.
Yeah.
But I was resistant to that morning routine stuff. But now I'm in that morning routine stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see why they say this. But like I had to come to it on my own.
For sure.
And
that takes
I
time.
think that like that this is the part that can get missed about prescriptive advice, where it's like, if you don't like it, you'll never do it.
No, for
Whether
sure.
it's a health routine or a workout routine or a diet, you know, it's like, you can do it for 6 weeks or 90 days, but you're going to fall off. So like so much of my work with helping folks, you know, bring this practice into their life is teaching them how to like it. Like, how do you set up a ritual where you can get quiet and write for 15 to 20 minutes a week?
Yeah. But also like a simple thing that's changed my life is the words you use with yourself will have a different energetic effect on how it resonates in the world around you. So for example, what you're talking about, like getting up in the morning and doing this, what I used to say in the morning is, I have to get up.
Totally.
And the difference, all that I changed was I get to.
Yep.
And it's the difference between me feeling like I'm being forced to have to do something, or me choosing to get up and do this routine and to choose how I start my day and to do it. And like, I resonate with this so much because I'm finally at a point in my life where my team kind of knows the first like hour or two of my day. I'm taking that to myself.
Yep.
I get up, I stretch, I have my morning routine, I do my peptides, I do my supplements, I drink my water, I listen to a morning playlist, the same playlist I listen to every morning because it gets me in a flow state and gets me in that rhythm. But if I don't do those things, the rest of my day is just like I'm erratic. I can feel my energy is messed up. And so, but it took me owning it, that it's like, I'm blessed that I can have the capability to start my day on my own and to own it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's self-awareness, right? I'm sure you didn't wake up knowing all that stuff, right?
No.
You worked up to that.
This took like 4 or 5 years to figure this stuff out. Like you said, it's adding one thing at a time. And what I'll tell you is, let's go back to the depression conversation. The days where I do my morning routine and I take ownership of my day, before like most of the day has even started, I am the least depressed I am than all the other days of the week. And it's because I did the things that are important to me. And that's really what it is. It's like, instead of you feeling like you gave your day to everyone else, I take ownership in my own day and I'm making the choices. I'm not being dragged through my day through obligation. It's like, I made the conscious decision to take this day, start this day, and this is going to be, this day is going to be my bitch, to say the least.
See, all our self-talk is different.
But instead of me being the bitch to the day, right? It's like, that's just, I don't know, that's like my way of just, funny way of saying it.
No, but it's true. I mean, that is I love that because it's so personal to you. It's like, this is how Joe is doing his day.
Yeah,
like
I'm pumping myself up.
Yeah, that's how you're hyped up. And like, that's beautiful. That's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like this day's my bitch, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's this day is my bitch because I am fully Joe today.
Yeah, I'm taking charge.
And that's the best case scenario. So when shit comes towards me, because it will, because that's what life does, I am as, embodied as I can possibly be.
Yeah.
And what that routine is and what those needs are varies, right? Like that requires us to know ourselves enough to say, for 3 to 4 years, that was coffee and housewives for me in the morning.
Yeah.
But now it is, it's being out in my backyard with my dog with my coffee for 15 minutes and actually getting straight to work. And that feels really good to me now. And so,
and these things can change.
It does change,
And
as our lives
beauty.
change and, when partners come and families come. And so, I think this word balance gets thrown around a lot of like, oh, I need to have more balance. I should have more balance, and it's like, oh, I actually disagree. I think that it's not even about chasing balance. It's about celebrating the imbalance, like being present enough to be like, oh, I'm in a sprint right now. That's really cool. Like I'm in this, I'm present. And also I have a recovery on the other side of that sprint. I don't expect my life to be a sprint.
Yeah.
And when, like I have a lot of friends with small kids and, they're in it and it's like, dude, you got a couple of years and then it's going to be over. And so how do you celebrate your exhaustion in this moment that is going to pass? Like it's not going to last. And what do you need to do in other areas of your life to support that season? Knowing that it's not going to last forever and stop and release this myth that you get to have balance while you have little kids. Like that's not going to happen. And that's beautiful, right? Yeah. We wouldn't want it any other way. Like give them the full imbalance, the attention of that imbalance and moment in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So we're about an hour and a half in, right, Zev? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So we can keep, I have a feeling we could talk for several more hours. Yeah. But what I want to do is for the last half hour, I want to finish up anything else you'd like to talk about this book.
Yeah.
And then I want to hear about your TEDx experience.
Oh, yeah.
And we can even go a little bit over. It's fine. I want to hear about it. This is important to me because I want to do a TED Talk and I really want to even hear what it's about and like hear the details. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So this book obviously has way more than we can ever have the time to talk about it in one podcast.
Of course.
It's just side note. How did the Kickstarter go?
Great.
We're going great. Did you do a lot of advertising for it? Because I'm about to do a Kickstarter for something that I've invented. I don't have time to get into that conversation now, but I'm just interested. Was it a lot of time and effort you put into it, or was it just like the product was so good that people were like, we want to invest in this?
Both.
Both.
I think Kickstarter does a great job. Do this, do that, do that. I just follow their instructions.
You just followed their instructions?
Yeah.
Okay,
do
awesome.
everything they said to do.
Okay, cool.
Nobody wants you to be more successful than them. They get a cut.
Yeah, they get a cut, right? What's their cut?
I don't remember. It's like GoFundMe, probably like 2 or 3%. Like
that's not bad at all.
No, it's not
got
bad.
it. I thought it was gonna be like 30%.
No.
Okay,
I don't think
fantastic.
so.
Okay, cool.
Definitely not 30. That's way too high.
Cool.
No, they give you a really great templates. They say, like reach out to your community this way, this many weeks out.
Okay.
If you have videos, that's even better. I didn't have videos. Like I didn't have anything at that point. So
Gotcha.
But it's like creating a launch. When I think about it, like now, and I know more about launching and things like that. Like, just do everything they say.
Okay, cool. Got it. Good to know. Okay, and so in regards to this book, is there anything else that you want to share about it? Is there a website that people can go buy it at?
Yep, hustleandplay.com.
HUSL or HUSTLE, and is it the symbol and
the word and
the word and play PLAY.com, and they can buy a copy of this. And so if you're looking to whether it's get out of depression or just organize your life a little bit better or learn to properly journal and meditate, I think that this has a bunch of those tools in there.
Yeah, and it comes with, so now I have a whole online community as well. So there's a whole app, there's chats, there's workshops, there's resources and everything. This is so much better in community. Yeah. And this is something that emerged from it being out in the world, right? Yeah. Like when I made the Kickstarter, I thought I'll make this book, people can buy it, I'm going to keep doing photography, it'll be passive income. Yeah. And then once it got into the hands of folks, I was like, oh, no, this is something to teach, something to, co-create and learn together.
Yeah.
And it's become a community. So folks who are mostly women, but, men are always welcome, who are doing this work are amazing. They're playful, they're in tune, they're aligned, and they want to be around each other. They want to be friends with each other. So that's where the retreats came from. That's where why I do so many workshops and events, because the more of us who are in this that are interfacing with each other, the more we learn, the more we heal, the more fun we're having, right?
Yeah.
So there's the book, and the book comes with access to all of that. That's all hustleandplay.com. But, I think the thing to say is just like, it's fun, it's kind of designed like a coloring book. I have, it's meant to marry all your efforts in personal development to your schedule, to be very like practically apply your gratitude practice, your journaling, your this and that to your everyday life. I love all the advice out there to do all the things, but if I'm not doing it every day, then what is the point?
Yeah, and I'm sure your education with children has really made it simple. You probably are making it, from what I just can see, there's like childlike photos. It's just very simple boxes.
Yes.
This is not, from what I'm looking at, it's not meant to feel like homework. It's meant to be.
But your brain is going to make it homework for the first year.
Yeah. And then you'll begin to enjoy doing it, right? That's like part of the process.
It's true. And the work truly is just learning how what I do makes me feel.
Yeah.
Does it feel like work? Does it feel like play? Am I pushing out of my comfort zone? So for example, right now, you use the example of like it's a push to chill or it's a push to play.
Yeah.
And that's true. Like for a lot of people. And so these categories overlap. And so for example, right now, I'm working, right? We're talking about my business. I hope people buy this book, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever, that's hustle.
Yeah.
We've never met. I've never done this podcast before. I'm deeply out of my comfort zone. I've never been to this building. Okay, so I'm pushing.
Yeah.
And we're talking about everything I love. I have a mutual friend. We're connecting. This is great.
Yeah.
Hustle, play, push.
Yeah.
In, we'll say 2 hours that I'm here.
Yeah.
That is very different, 2 hours spent in my day, than if I was sitting at my computer answering emails.
Yeah.
Right? And so the energy that I have left after leaving today is going to be like pretty like spent. I'm not going to go I'm not going to go write a lot right now, or I'm not going to go make content. I'll probably leave and answer emails or go grocery shopping or do something that requires a different part of my brain.
Yeah. I completely understand that.
Right. And so when we learn how that energy works, because it's finite, things just get easier. We naturally will start to stack things a little bit differently, and it's those little changes that add up over time to really big shifts.
Yeah.
But if we start with the big shifts, that tends to be very disruptive and not sustainable. And so what happens is the longer you use this, the more sustainable change you see, and the more kind of evangelized you become. You're just like, oh my God, this helps me so much. Like if I have not mapped out my week on a Monday, by Thursday, I'm crazy, and I'm doing it, I'm doing it retroactively, because I'm like, oh, if you're just out here with your calendar, like that's the only thing dictating. I'm like, how do you know? I don't know. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But now you're getting more and more data, and the more data you have, the more analyzed decisions you can make in the future to help predict how you're going to respond and what type of request, or not what type of request, what type of rest and recovery you might need, or just how you're going to respond in a specific situation.
And all the stuff that doesn't make it into your calendar that you still do.
Yeah.
The grocery shopping, the taking the walks, listening to the podcast, the meeting a friend. And so when your calendar that is typically work driven takes over, all that stuff is very easy to fall away.
Yeah.
And so I think most people are out here living like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm to the point where, I can't go more than a couple of days where I'm like, no, what's my play?
Yeah.
What's my move?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say let's talk about the TEDx because
Yeah, one other thing I just wanted to bring up, I remember seeing on your Instagram, there's just like, you sometimes do these accountability calls where people are playing for like 30 days in a row. Like, what is that?
yes, we did a play challenge. Excuse me. So fun. This year we did play every day in May.
Okay.
And
I like that. That's
yeah, that was an
rhymes.
experiment. It
Yeah.
was amazing. We'll definitely do more of that. We might do shorter version. We'll see.
Yeah.
But basically, the challenge was, can you play every day in May? And there was a cash prize and all these ways. We did like Monday morning calls and, so we'd have like a little Monday morning party. And then if you, post pictures of you playing on Instagram or in our online community, you get a certain amount of points and then, you could win. But essentially just what you saw was this wind tunnel of play of all these women, mostly women, not all women, but doing just all the high range of play that you can do, whether that's getting your nails done or, with your family in Japan or hanging out, playing Connect 4 with your son at dinner or a dance party or, all the infinite ways to play. The challenge was so fun and it was more effective than anything I've done around like talking and workshops and retreats. It's just like, no. You need to go play in your life every day and you need to show us. Everybody has such great feedback and it really inspired folks to just see it in action. It's not a big, like you do have enough time.
Yeah, but it's great to share and also other people holding you accountable and like not in a direct holding accountable way, but
like,
just
not a
like we're
negative.
doing it together and we're supporting each other. So community in that respect is great. And then, I really loved what you said about like a minute ago where you were talking about how like this moment right now is a combination of multiple of these things.
Yeah.
Because when you said those things, it made me realize I felt the same way in a lot of these ways, right? Like this is hustle because I'm creating content for my personal brand, which is great, but also this is play because this is my favorite thing that I do. But at the same time, this is pushing me too because I didn't really know you that well. We're having a conversation around a topic that I don't really know much about. And for me, it's really listening and understanding and trying to guide the conversation, which can be, but the moving part, is that moving just meaning physical movement? I guess I didn't get clarification about what move means.
Yeah. Movement is anything that makes you sweat.
Gotcha. Well, we're probably sweating a bit in here.
Maybe. No, but like,
I gotcha.
The thing to pull out of, say, that example is like, if one thing hits multiple categories, it's important to you.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would say this does, even if we are sweating, this probably isn't hitting move.
Got it.
We should move at some point in our day.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll do that. I'll do dog walks and things like that. But like,
Got it. You're saying the move is more just the fact that you need to bring into your life an aspect of movement every single day, whether it's a walk, exercise, a workout. That's, I 100% agree with you. There needs to be some sort of movement every single day. Most people are sitting.
People will argue with me.
No.
And they will say, what about a massage? Is massage movement?
That's not movement. No, you got to move your ass. Sorry.
Right. And I'm like, and what's hard is that, we have to divorce. You have to move your ass. Yeah. We have to divorce movement with how you look.
Yeah.
Right? This is not saying look good every day.
No.
Although I think effort into how you look is great.
Yeah.
Movement is about blood flow, brain health, heart health, and mental health.
No, for sure.
And if you are not moving, which I would argue far too many people are not moving, and it's one of the more challenging categories that I find because of all the stories we have around movement. Especially a lot of women were, they had a really negative relationship to movement and sports growing up. And so if you weren't lucky to like be, stewarded in a young part of your life, then learning that later is much harder.
Yeah.
But I digress. Either way, you got to move your ass every day.
Yeah.
And how that looks in summer is different than winter.
100%.
We're in Southern California. We're lucky. Yeah. But
most people don't have
in
that.
other climates, it's like you got to plan for it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you just bring up a great point, which is like movement can be any way that you really want it to be, right? It can be a walk around your block. It can be walking your dog, right? Yep. Or for me, like days when I don't have time to go to the gym, I do 100 body squats and I do 100 push-ups.
Yep.
This takes me no more than 30 minutes of my day. And I just, I get it done. And then for me, even though I didn't have time to go to the gym and get a full workout in, that makes me, I got my move in.
Yep.
And that also goes to the depression part.
Yes.
Because the days where I don't move, I'm like a picker, just for lack of sharing my insecurities on TV. Like I'll pick my head and stuff. And I notice on the days where I don't move, and when I don't move that energy because I'm just such a high energy person, I'll find myself like picking.
Yeah.
And it's just because I have all this energy inside of me. And if it doesn't go somewhere and it doesn't do something and I'm not getting out there, I literally am hurting myself because I'm like telling myself, hey, you need to go move. You need to get this out of your body.
Right.
So so I resonate with that.
Yeah. And so having like a space to like, if you already visualized that this week, you sat down on a Sunday night or a Monday and you were like, all right, here's my week with all my hustle, with all my push and this is how I'm going to move. The decision's already made. You already know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So for example, I have a busy week. I didn't really want to go to the gym yesterday, but I'm like, I have to. I'm too busy the next 4 days. I'm not going to get there. So it got my ass there. And now I'm just going to have lighter movement, because my hustle is dictating that.
Yeah.
So it's this knowing ahead of time, this, making decisions ahead of time. And that's your greenhouse of your garden, right? Because if you're trying to do that in the moment, it's really hard, first of all, and second, like your energy at the time can be all over the place. And but yeah, on your depression point, and when you were talking about the medication and all of that, it's like what kills me is like I know the medication can be helpful, but it's prescribed without something like this with it, right?
Maybe
so like,
start there.
Yeah.
Before just giving you medication you're going to be addicted to for the rest of your life.
We're going to put you on a rigorous movement and diet for a little bit and see how the symptoms go. And that to me is like looking at the soil, looking at the root structure. We'll go to medication if we need to.
Maybe prescribing a book, right? Sometimes that's really the solution is read this book and you might get the answers you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the TED Talk.
Sure.
So when did you know you were going to do a TED Talk? How did that come about? What was that process like?
So super divine timing and also I think beautiful outcome that you can't plan for, in my case. I was asked to guest speak at my friend's classroom, high school classroom, Palos Verdes. And he was like, he teaches a wellness class. Will you come talk to my kids? And I'm like, of course. And then being who I am and loving kids, I'm like, I'm going to do a workshop. I'm not going to do a talk. They don't care. Like I want to teach them something. So I put a workshop together and, gave them the basic tenets of hustle and play, had them practice with it and, had a great time, went well, they liked it. And my friend's colleague was sitting in on the workshop. Okay, cool. And about a month later, he was like, hey, do you know what TED Talks are? Do you know like TEDx something? And I was like, yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? You don't? And he was like, he's like, oh yeah, well, like, I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, so Heather, who was in the room, she leads, I guess we do TEDx talks on campus, and she wanted to know if you wanted to be a speaker. And I was like, what? This is not how this happens.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, can I put you in touch? I'm like, yes, please put me in touch. So she reaches out.
How cool.
And she said, I loved your session. And yeah, we have a TEDx chapter here on campus. We have a handful of adult speakers and a handful of student speakers. The students do all the production and run everything. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'm like, of course. But
for sure.
I have never considered it at that point.
Yeah.
Like to me, something like that felt 10 years off.
Yeah.
Because my imagination of what a TEDx speaker is, whatever, I don't know what that was.
I really resonate with that. That's the reason I haven't moved forward with my TEDx talk. I already have it like pretty much written and I know what I want to say. And I even paid for a coaching program, but I don't feel that I'm worthy enough to give a TEDx talk because I'm just like, who am I? What great accomplishment.
Joe Naz.
Yeah,
Get in there.
I know, but this is me. Yeah, I guess it's just me kind of like being vulnerable for a second. It's like,
good.
It's just like, what?
I mean, there is nothing more vulnerable than this.
Yeah.
Or at least that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And she talked me through the application process, which at that point was kind of a formality.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, every TEDx chapter is different. So I
Yeah.
think if I had gone to TEDx Los Angeles proper, like, I don't know if I would have gotten in, but I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I did not feel worthy,
Yeah.
you know, all those things, but I just knew this was such a great opportunity. I'm not going to pass it up.
For sure.
And so, you know, I forced myself to, well, I shouldn't say I forced myself. I invited myself.
Yeah.
Drop into this opportunity. This is beautiful. This is a gift. This was divine. You didn't chase this. This, to me, was a perfect example of my core values rewarding me for giving my all to these students because I love young people. I gave them the best workshop I could possibly give, and I was not paid for that at all. Like, I just showed up as my full self. I gave them my full effort, and I received a TEDx talk, but I didn't know that was coming. And so that is a confirmation of everything I believe. When something is deeply resonant, then the universe is going to reward you some way, somehow for showing up as best you can. And so anyways, the guidelines are it's 17 minutes. If you go 17:01, it doesn't count. They're not going to upload it. No pressure. And no notes. You don't get to...
No, it's got to all be up there.
There'll be no prompter. You can have slides, but they discourage you from really having many.
Yeah.
It's not a presentation, it's a talk. So...
Yeah. No, but that's also good. They show studies. I mean, as a lawyer, I read books where they talk about when you have slides with too much information, you lose the idea of what's going on with the speech. Mm-hmm. When you have a presentation, you want to have maybe a couple words, maybe 3 or 4 words with a picture, but not have a sentence. The moment you have something that's longer than a couple words, the attention is gone from you, and people are not able to follow everything that's going on at the same time. Sorry, that was just a sidebar.
Yeah. No, and I haven't done research on that, but I've been in enough presentations and enough conferences and enough da-da.
Yeah.
And I love to public speak, and I think I'm good at it. And so I, from my own experience, have known that, but also like people's attention span, 15 minutes, like, tell a great story and they will be with you. So I've never done anything like that. I've always had slides. I've always had, some kind of outline with me, and it felt like, I felt like I was, in order to properly tell the story that I wanted to tell, which was basically this complicated relationship between the world we live in, the wellness industry, and how I created Hustle and Play. Like these big topics that required me to go really in depth of my 18-month journey to burnout, my climb out of it, how I made the tool, and then all the systemic forces that were happening. Like, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But
we're talking about it, and it's already been...
It's been
over
2 hours. Right, exactly. And I feel like we really didn't even touch on it. There's so many other things I could have talked about. But, the way that I broke open... Like, my poor therapist, like one day we had a session when I was right in the middle of it, and I was just like, I was healing so much, like... processing. I didn't know that I was going through what I was going through in those 18 months. I didn't know how close together all that stuff was. I had never really, I knew it happened, but so all that to say, and then I practice. And when I did get on stage, I did have like a kind of a blackout moment, and like the practice took over. I just kind of left my body, and afterwards, I like totally broke down. I was like just sobbing in the back and did not see that coming. Like, I had, friends that were with me, and I thought I would feel so relieved and excited and this is finally over. But I thought I fucked it up. I had all this negative self-talk afterwards. And that really surprised me because I don't really do that to myself. But I had put a lot of pressure on this one thing, and like, you only get this chance once and all this stuff. And, that lasted about a day or two, and then it, kind of started to ease off. And then once it was out in the world, which takes 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, I felt really proud and really excited to have this, piece of art, work, whatever you want to call it,
It is
that
art.
is so useful. Now I can like send that to people and we can do a workshop where like they've already watched it. So like, all right, we already have like a baseline of who I am and where I've been and what this is. Let's get to it, It's a teaching tool. And I feel fully processed of those 18 months that like I thought I already had, but like, no. Like I felt this, like I stepped into a new version of myself when it was over that I've never been happier or lighter or more embodied because I had the opportunity to do that. So,
But maybe that ending that you had where you felt that you did bad was a part of you dying,
Yeah.
right? And that's something
Yep.
that you probably needed to fully process through. And,
Yep.
it probably was hard on your friends and family more than anything because they were so proud of you
Yeah.
and seeing
They
you
were
in
so
that state. They were
confused.
so confused. But
They were like, I thought it was good. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, you're just saying that. And
Yeah.
it was like very like
Yeah.
child version of
Yeah,
me.
but
Yeah.
sometimes you have to like weep out that child version of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember once after a sweat lodge I did with some friends, I had to let like my teenage version of myself die. And, everybody got out like feeling so proud and stuff. And I'm sitting there just like weeping because I just felt like I was letting a part of me just go.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's like the funeral of like the past self, and it's just stepping into the future version of yourself. And you have to go through it. And it happens where it happens, and it happens when
Right.
it happens. And so it's great that you felt through it instead of holding in those emotions
Yeah.
and maybe pretending that you were okay with it, but you felt what you were genuinely feeling, and it
Right.
needed to get out. And
Yeah.
it probably had so many great lessons that you're able to look back now and be like, I'm so proud of myself
Yeah.
for feeling them and also just for going through that. So good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to listen to your TED Talks. Please send me a link.
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, 100%. I love
What
TED Talks.
what do you want yours to be about? Or if you feel comfortable sharing.
No, that's fine. The title of my talk is going to be "What do you want and why?" And the conversation is going to be reflecting around what is your intention in the world, and how do you live your life, and essentially how can you call in the things that you really desire. And so one thing, like something I've consistently talked about, is like the word intention means to be like in constant tension. And it's something that I learned from Matthias de Stefano, if you know who that is. Something that he brought up in a speech once. Like the Latin root is in constant tension. So it's a combination of what you think, what you feel, and what you do, right? And so Joe Dispenza describes it as your personality or your personal reality. It's your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, right? When all three are not in perfect constant tension, you're not able to manifest or bring into your life the things that you truly desire, because one of the strings is loose. And so when one of the strings is loose, everything falls apart.
Right.
And so through living in intention in your life with your thoughts, your feelings, and the things that you do on a daily basis, you can bring what you really desire to the forefront.
Yep.
A lot of the things that are discussed that after I had my epiphanies and I had my realizations, I read The Secret, and I realized a lot of, which comes back to the same thing, that a lot of the most successful people, they all realize the same things,
Right.
and they're all understanding the same processes. So for me, it's going to be the process of telling it from my terms, but also taking the lessons and the journeys that I've collected over the last couple of years of my journey of self-discovery, spending some time with myself, reading so many books and watching and doing so many classes and masterminds, and combining that into one piece of knowledge that's going to be really getting down to the point of, if you get crystal clear on what you want, like crystal clear, and that can be like, if you want like a monetary thing, sure, that can be it. If you want a relationship, that can be it. It can be, if you want growth, right? Whatever it is, if you get crystal clear, and then you live, and your why is your intention. And if you live in perfect intention, and the way that you think and what you feel and what you do are constantly working together, then you will always be able to receive that.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be explaining to people in the simplest way possible just what intention means, how you can get crystal clear on your desires, and then how you can bring the life that you've always desired to fruition.
Have you written it?
It's all in my head, most of it. But I've written an outline.
Yeah.
I've written a general outline, but I've learned for myself, the more like I write it out too fully, I get too much in my head, and I a lot. I talk in front of like networking groups and stuff a lot. I've just learned from me having just certain words or just outlines,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
can go from there. So what I'm gonna do, this is a good motivation for me. I
Yeah.
need to reach back out to the coach that I already paid for.
Yeah.
And I kind of backed out because I felt that I wasn't worthy to give my speech. And I need to just start up the coaching program. And she's going to help dial it in over the next year. And then the goal will be hopefully at the end of next year, or maybe sooner rather than later, since I already have most of it in my head and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even going to say do the coaching program. I was going to.
Yeah, just do it.
I was going to, I mean, maybe you could just say it.
Yeah.
Like you do your journaling, right?
Yeah.
Like verbal. See how it feels.
Yeah.
To let it all out, time it.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's one thing is I haven't timed it. So I need to see how
I mean,
long
all
I'm
that
gonna
gets
speak.
dialed in.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was practicing, I started like 25 minutes, then it's 20, then it's 19. I think I was at like 16:30 when at my practices going into that night. So I was, nervous about the timing, to say the least, because I was so worried. I'm like, it's not going to count, blah, blah, blah. But I think it clocked at like 16. So you're always going to talk faster than.
Yeah.
But like, to me, all that's to say, like, that's the last thing.
Yeah.
That's the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
I think what becomes the most challenging, and once you really get into like how short 15 minutes really is, it makes you shave off.
Yeah.
You have to cut the fat.
Yeah.
And so the reason I asked if you'd written it or whatever, start practicing, it's like, how does it feel in your body just to be in that energy, right? When I started writing and saying it, I was like, oh, there's something bigger going on here.
Yeah.
I was meant to do this for reasons that I don't understand yet. And I still feel that way, even being a year out from it. And so clearly you feel this deep calling.
Yeah.
I would say, sure, call the coach. If that's, that is a good like accountability device, that helps.
I need to be held accountable.
Yeah. And I get that.
It comes
but
from
like,
my mom trauma growing up. She was always sitting over my shoulder, like making sure I was doing things this way. But it's also something that I've learned as I've gotten older that actually is a good way to get me to get stuff to get done. Is when I do have an accountability partner. But when you're talking about how do I feel when I say it, I feel the same exact way. It's like, I don't know why, but when I'm saying it to others, there's like, the truth bumps and I feel it throughout my body that I'm not sure the effect that it's going to have on the person in front of me, but I know that what I'm saying is going to benefit them, and it's not for me. It's because I need to share it with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's both, right? Like you've gone through everything you've been through, which is, and that was, I guess, the unexpected whole part of the experience for me. I went into it like, oh, this is my one shot to do something, to promote Hustle and Play, to really talk about how important it is, and I hope it makes this great impact. And what ended up happening was this deep healing that I didn't even know I needed. I thought I was way past all that stuff. And so, but I know it was good and effective because I let myself go there in the process. And you'll do that too, right? Like this is not light subject matter. So the process of like conveying the real message that you have to share is so deeply personal. There's no way that it can't be.
Yeah.
And so, and who knows? And so the reason I asked if you're like practicing or whatever, it's just, that is just awakening the energy that you're putting out into the world. And so the universe will respond, right? One way or another, whether it's TEDx or other speaking engagements, right? It could be anything.
Yeah.
And so, just saying like, oh, I have this message to share. I want to hone in on it. I want to give time to it. I actually don't know where it's going to go. I just feel it within me, and that's push and play.
Yeah.
And so I give, an hour to a week to that, and maybe that's with the coach and that's the best way, or maybe not. I don't know. But you never know like where that goes. I had said I want to do speaking engagements because I love public speaking, which most people don't, but I do. And
I
so
love public speaking.
yeah,
too.
like that's just something I had said without any attachment in my goals of 2022. And by December 2022, I have a TEDx. Like that's fucking crazy.
That's awesome.
It makes no sense. Yeah. And
Or
so
makes perfect
I
sense.
think the best, right. But like in hindsight, of course, like when you really track how values alignment works. And so it's very, I think, difficult and requires so much trust and faith to make decisions based on values alignment because they don't always make sense.
Yeah.
I could have said no to that. Why would I go to your high school? You're not paying me. That's a lot of hours and time and, whatever. But I'm like, no, I love kids. I love you. I love this. Maybe they'll hear something that will help them play more in their lives. That was my only thinking. And then something happened that might change the course of my life, right?
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear your talk.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen to yours too, and it's bringing a lot of emotions for me where I just need to make the decision and move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and without attachment.
Without attachment. Yeah, whatever
Just
the outcome is and whatever happens.
Let the message come and
let it out. Okay. So to wrap things up,
yes.
How can people find you? Let's just go over that one more time.
Yeah.
And how can they contact you? Or do you just recommend they buy the book? Or do you prefer that people reach out to you on Instagram? It's up to you. You can tell the camera and tell people how to reach out to you.
I think the easiest way is, hustleandplay.com has all the information. But yeah, come DM me on Instagram if you have any questions. Hustle and Play on Instagram.
Is it the and symbol or AND?
AND for
Okay.
both. So Hustle and Play, all one word. You can buy the book if you're into that, but also if you just have questions or you want to learn more, go to the Instagram. I think that I would love to hear from you. I would love to learn how you like to play.
Cool.
You know?
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for chiming in. Morgan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This was an amazing story, and I'm definitely excited to look through this book and to start picking up some practices that I have not done in a while. And thank you again for the inspiration to get back on my journey to move forward with this TEDx talk. And this was an awesome conversation.
Awesome.
A lot of times when you don't know people, you don't know how the conversation's going to go.
Facts.
And sometimes you don't agree with everybody on what they're saying. And then other times you agree with everybody on what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so this was a great conversation. I resonated with you on a lot of levels. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank
and thank you, Katie,
you.
for connecting
Till
us.
next
We really
time.
appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Katie. Thank you, Katie.
So this is awesome.